Here we go, Mark. We're live again.
Live. Hey, we are. We were just talking about our day a little bit. That you and I both ended up out on 135 and Corydon, coming back from Corydon. You were coming back from Louisville, and I was coming back from Corydon, and I was talking to you about my medical billing experience that I've been dealing with, and it comes down that there's a lot of confusion as to what goes into medical billing, what's a proper bill, and there's a lot of people who end up with getting a procedure done, and their insurance. You think that everything's going well with your insurance, and well, then all of a sudden you get a bill.
Boom.
And so, and a lot of times it's a big bill. And so that recently happened to me, and I was working through some of that. And it's a lot of it's basic mistake stuff. Somebody didn't put the right code in or what have you. But when you talk about these codes,
All right.
So in my experience today was this. I was going through trying to find out, one, I had to have a procedure today, just a scan. And another is I was talking about a scan that I had back a couple of weeks ago,
Right.
a couple of months ago, actually. And so I was trying to work out, hey, why did I get this bill and such? And it turns out everything's fine. The Harrison County Hospital took care of it perfectly with no problem. So just a shout out to them for the billing team over there going and figuring that out for me. But what it comes down to is I wanted to make sure, because I had gotten that bill, I wanted to make sure that, I had everything aligned for today's thing. And so in looking in this, I called my doctor and said, hey, what am I getting done today? And so they said, I said, I want to make sure that we got a pre-authorization from my insurance. And they said, well, you don't need one for this procedure. We looked it up. It doesn't need one. And I said, okay, I trust but verify. So I call
Double V, no double V. Right?
So I want to make sure. So I called my insurance and I talked to them. They said, well, what's the code? And I'm like, okay, well, all they gave me was diagnostic codes. They didn't give me anything else. And so there's two different types of codes. Actually, it's one type of code called, HCPCS codes. I'm trying to look at Healthcare Common Procedure Coding System codes. And under that, you have like CPT codes was another type of code there. And then their level 2 are HCPCS codes themselves, and so on. So I was looking at this, and the insurance company was confusing because when they said it's either a CPT code or a HICS code, well, the HICS codes come to find out are HCPCS codes. And what's even more confusing is CPT codes are both considered a type of HCPCS code. Right. And then HCPCS itself is also a level or a type of code. Right. And so we wanted to so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what to do if you're trying to do everything you can to make sure that your medical billing and everything is square before you go into a procedure. I want to talk a little bit about what you should do. And you and I both had instances of this. We've both been talking about it a little bit. And so I think we can both, because you have it from a VA standpoint, and I have it from a civilian standpoint. And I think both things
I still have TRICARE too, because TRICARE covers like my wife and kids, where VA covers me. But
right, that's what I meant. I meant you had TRICARE is the military insurance, right? The military families.
100%. I forget who, but like I know my dental and vision is different because I use like a GIA.
They used to have mail handlers back in the day. I don't know if that was never for the military though.
I don't know.
But I think it was for civil service. So I think my dad had mail handlers at one time, which I think comes out of the post office, obviously.
No idea.
The name sounds obvious that it's mail handlers versus, and then, so I think it may have been developed, and don't quote me on this, but it may have been developed out for the post office, postal workers.
I don't know.
And then it was spread out to the other civil service workers.
So what I know is this, should you go to your primary care physician and your primary care physician feels like, let's say you have to go to a nose and throat specialist, right?
Right.
Ear, nose, and throat specialist. Well, they make a referral based off of a diagnosis that you may have these, and I'm not an expert. Let me send you to an expert.
Right. I mean, well,
that referral has to have certain checks and balances. The insurance company is going to come back and say, okay, what are you suggesting that he needs to see them for specifically? What are these codes that match your diagnostic expertise, right?
Right.
So now,
why are you sending? Why do we need to go deeper?
Right. Now. What I call it, and of course, each carrier might have a different code system or strategy. I don't know. They should all have the same code strategy. But then I give you the codes. His billing office needs to notify the referral. You got to get the referral. But he says, hey, I'm going to call such and such doctor. He's a really good ear, nose, and throat specialist. Well, you need to hit the brakes. Pump the brakes, because anytime the doctor says you need to go see this person doesn't necessarily mean that your insurance aligns with the person that they want you to go see.
Are they in network, first of all?
In the network, because there is an in-network cost and an out-of-network cost.
Right.
And, you can justify those in different means, distance of travel, et cetera, or burden on the family.
Yeah, there are certain rules in your insurance. Your insurance may pick up an out-of-network provider under certain circumstances.
Yeah.
Like you said, like distance or what have you.
So assuming that they made a referral to somebody, it's still the patient's responsibility to verify that that the doctor submits the referral, that your insurance company received the referral, and that the referral is for the specific need associated with the preliminary diagnosis.
And it gets very specific, because each of the codes that we talked about earlier, they get broken down into categories, but then those categories are very specific.
Yeah.
For instance, mine today was I was going to have some ultrasound work done, because we thought we wanted to make sure I didn't have any blood clots or anything like that for some of my treatments and things. So they referred me over to the hospital. Yeah. And the hospital, they got this was an extreme circumstance, because they did it all in the same day. We got the results back from a test that said, hey, maybe we should go look at something more. Yeah. And then they sent me over to the hospital to have this test done. All was good, by the way.
Right. So. Good. That's good. Thank you, Jesus. Once you've got this referral, usually you should have an access to an account that allows you to look at your insurance, and they've got a little portal, and you go in there and you can see the referral. Now it's up to you. Now, if you don't like the doctor and there are other doctors in the network that are, just as good, or because you heard from a friend, they usually give the opportunity in the portal to look for a different provider, but you also have to call that provider and see if they can fit you in or as such.
Right.
And so just because the provider is available does not necessarily mean that they have to provide you care, because they could be overbooked. They could have patients. They might not be able to see you for 6 months because they have so many people with the same problem.
But you're the doctor who is the doctor who is referring, the referring doctor. They should do the job of, they should be putting into your insurance and making sure that it's a covered item. They should,
but they don't have to.
Right. But they generally do, and you can ask them that question: are you getting the pre-authorization for this? And that's the trick. Is some things require pre-authorization in your insurance.
Don't assume anything.
Don't assume anything. Like today, I it's a trust but verify. And one thing, like I said, everything happened in one day for me today, so I couldn't go to a portal and look and see. I had to call and talk to somebody. Yeah. So, just saying, there's an extreme case, and then there's the normal case. The normal case is you can go to the portal and take a look at things. Yeah. You can go look things up.
Typically, if you end up in a serious accident or whatever, and you are in the hospital and you've got multiple injuries requiring multiple doctors or whatever,
and a lot of times nobody's asking for networks or whatever. You're going to the closest hospital, especially if you're out or whatever, and if you're unconscious or something. And those are things that all come into play. But in this case,
At the end of the day, where I was going with that is when you show up with I'm trying to give the process. So once
Yeah.
you get to the referral and you show up for the referral, your referral only covers that specific thing. So if they treat you for something differently and they bill it out to your insurance and they incorrectly bill it, and the referral said you're coming in for this, right? But then they actually see you for this and they don't match the referral, you could end up getting stuck with the bill because they didn't treat you
because
for
they didn't,
yeah,
simply because they didn't match.
that's exactly right.
Right, if the code was off, like what I had done today, there's actually a couple of different codes depending on the exact way method they used. It could have been, and it was just one digit off between the two.
So
and that happens.
So my other experience is that a lot of times, you know, your doctor is saying, I'm worried about you, Steve. I want you to go and see this doctor, blah, blah. They send you on the referral. The part that gets me is when they don't talk to one another afterwards.
yeah.
So sometimes you may find yourself having to get the records from that doctor, go back to your main doctor and say, here's what they said I had,
Yeah.
or, you know, something to that effect. Or, you know, you go run that test that you need. The results are going back to your referring physician, especially if it's an x-ray. X-ray doctor is not going to talk to you. They're going to send it back to your primary, and then they're going to tell you the records came back, or their staff will, and say you're good to go or something.
Right,
Same with
right.
blood work or anything else.
Yeah, and they each of them have a system usually that they keep their record system in. When I go to Norton's uses MyChart. So does Baptist Health, down in Elizabethtown. They use MyChart. And so, they're not the exact same MyChart. They're individual instances. So I have to log into each of them. However, it's so much easier when you have that. So I have other doctors that don't have that. They have their own portal system, or they have another brand of portal system. And it is, I wish they could get that on one, or at least allow them all to talk to each other. Because I know my primary care physician, they have a system that they've used internally, but I couldn't access it for a long time. And then I started using MyChart with some of these other things I was going through last year. And I was like, wow, this has been really, really good. Because I can see, actually, I had MyChart for years ago from another thing that I did, but I didn't realize how the extent of it.
Right.
But it does all your billing and all that, and you can see everything that's going on. And then if you use that in conjunction with your insurance portal, those two things together, you can pretty much figure just about anything out after the fact anyway. It's during that pre-authorization section that kind of gets confusing. And it's like, I want to make sure I don't have a bill coming from my family, for me and my family, that, you know, that's going to be, you know, it's going to put us in a hardship or something. And just because it was an accident. And like I said, the good news is that almost everybody wants to be helpful to try to remedy it. The insurance is a little slower probably than the providers and the hospitals and the providers.
Right.
They really want to try to they want to get paid, but they're trying to take stress off of you. So I really appreciate the fact that they're trying to do that. But you know, when I called my insurance on the deal from back in September, or sorry about that, from back in December, the one that didn't get paid, they said that
Mark, you ain't paying your bill.
well, my insurance company said, there was some confusion because they said they acted like I had to fax in a form or something. And then I called and was talking to them today, and they said, when I was talking to another lady today, she goes, well, your insurance is just a phone call for an appeal. You just have to do a phone call. I said, well, I called 4, 5, 6 weeks ago about this appeal, and they told me I had to do I had to fax them. I said, well, who has a fax machine at home?
Just the facts, man.
Yeah.
Just the facts.
Just the facts. So I don't have a fax machine. So now I've got to go through this whole thing to write this out, and I'm trying to figure all that out. And then then I call back about this other, trying to do a pre-authorization. This lady said, "Oh no, we just say it,"
Say it, don't spray it.
It's like, all right, so they got started. The good news is it all got taken care of today, just all out of the blue. So
See, you know what? We were talking about it, and I'd say Jesus was listening, and it just fall into place.
Jesus is in all this.
I tell you,
since the very beginning of my ordeal. But
this is a challenge that everybody faces in Kentucky. I think it's a difficult challenge. There was an article recently in Kentucky Today. They were talking about.
I don't have send me the link. I don't have the link.
It was a pastor's fight with his daughter who was adopted in Kentucky. That's when children get adopted as youth, right? Very young.
Yeah.
In some cases, older and others, but they have a lot of stuff that happens. And trying to get treatment or care for those individuals in the battle to get the care that they were getting or to get their documents once that transition happens has evidently proven to be a battle in Kentucky. It didn't really talk about what the disposition was, but I can only imagine as an adult trying to navigate insurance and all that other stuff. Let me see if I can forward this to you.
I mean, yeah.
It's just as difficult when you're trying to deal with it for your children. An example for me is, my son went to the dentist. The dentist referred him to an orthodontist because of the way his jaw aligns with his teeth, and has a severe underbite.
That's a whole nother subject.
Whole nother subject. Same process, though.
Yeah.
And instantly I'm finding myself trying to do an appeal, right? And it's just not an easy process. It seems to be affected at every turn. It's just like they want to have the double paperwork to belabor the claim than to have to pay. If you're not going to respond, then we don't have to pay the claim. But we're going to do it. We're going to deny you, so you have to appeal, and we'll do this little measure just to hold things.
It's
up.
a dance. It feels like a dance.
It is.
There may be it may be a necessity on their side, and that's okay. But I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Right. And from my standpoint, I'm doing a dance just to make to make somebody happy.
Yep.
And they're like, well, how did that? How do we get to this? Right. How do we?
Yeah.
Why is this important that I have to do all this extra legwork? My doctor said, "Hey, I've got a problem. They want to look into, and I've got a test result here that says, hey, something's going on. Seems to me it should be very simple. Ultimately, it was very simple, but when you look at the actual process that's in the background, it's a complicated web of codes and communications and things. And if any one of those things break down, it makes it look like you just get a bill.
Sure.
And it's not it is the bill. Trust me, because if you get when you get an $8,000 bill that you didn't expect, it's a big deal to just about
Emotionally,
anybody.
yeah, absolutely. Well,
but then the stress that you're going through, you're already going through treatments and you're going through different things. And it could really, it really drives, it can make you actually worse because now you're going to start stressing about where's this money coming from. I've experienced that in this ordeal that, from time to time where it's like, okay, well, God, where's this money coming from? I'm believing it's coming, but it doesn't mean you don't still have that stress going on. You're trying really hard not to.
Totally.
But we're human and we pray through it and we believe it's coming. And it's funny because like most days when money is when I just believe God's going to provide. I do almost every day. But when you start getting weakened down and you're feeling bad because maybe your treatments are affecting you, and then you have stress from work, and then you have stress from everyday life,
family, finances, everything.
It gets harder and harder to focus on God, and and we go through that.
Weather in the storm, right?
Yeah, that's why I go to church. That's because you go to church, you talk to people, and you make sure you have people in your life that you can talk to about these things, so that those stresses don't become depression and lead you down a worse trail.
Yeah.
And so I have a very prayerful wife. I have great friends like yourself, people that I can talk to that's an important part of life that keeps you prayed up and keeps you
Prayed up.
focused on.
Have you noticed that?
On what you can do about it. So,
A couple of big known actors have been talking about "Are You Prayed Up?" And a new app that's out that gets
Mark
you through
Wahlberg and Chris Pratt. Yeah,
gets
so
you
they
through
have
the
their
Bible in 365 days.
Now, we do that all the time. We use the Bible app. Kathy and I do. They're promoting their new app. What's it called?
Halo.
Halo, and
Not Halo the game. Halo like the Halo.
And it seems to be a great app, very similar to what we've used in the past. And I'm super excited that they're out there doing that, promoting that. I love when I see an actor or actor, actress, any celebrity that they stand up for God and they give God the credit.
Yeah.
And and you can tell the difference between those who stand up there and they give praise to God like it's when they're doing it just to show that they're doing it, and there's those who you can tell are living it. And so these two guys are people that it looks like they've lived it in their life. They've basically put their careers on it. They've said, "Hey, I'm thinking of God first, and He's going to take care of me through that." And it's an awesome thing to see and very inspirational. Kentucky's baseball coach. I think I told you that story on here once before, or on the other podcast.
Wait, it was on another one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where when I found out about my cancer diagnosis, it was like 2 weeks after this, and I didn't know. You always hear people talk about let go and let God do things for you. Give it to God and things like that. But it's like, how do you really do that? And in his testimony, he gave, instead of a post-game speech, he gave a testimony, and he talked about where he was just a few years ago and how his walk with Christ has lifted him up out of this. And he figured out that when you give it to God, it's basically you stop focusing on 10 steps down the road and you focus on the next step. And you trust that when you take that step, that the floor is going to be there, and that the next the floor is going to be there. You're just going to do the things that you can do right in front of you, one step at a time, and you're trusting in God that this is the right path. And you don't try to don't try to switch it on your own. You just keep walking down the path that's in front of you. And that was inspirational, and it really put some things in perspective for me. I came to tears when I saw him do that. A little bit. It just made me feel so warm inside to hear somebody actually say that, and I was like, oh wow, that kind of clicks for me now. And then 2 weeks later, I found out about this diagnosis, and I was like, okay, well, I prayed through it for the weekend, and
you had a lot of prayer support too.
A lot of prayer support from my friends and family. People I didn't even know were praying for me.
Sure.
And so that's one reason I love living in this community.
Same.
And so when I went through that, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to the doctor, but find out. I'm trusting that God has put me on the path of the good doctor.
You got something else to do in life, brother.
Yeah,
called Kentucky Talks.
Yeah. So anyway, but for real.
Yeah.
So I figured that out, and so I just took the next step, the next step, and the next step, and I didn't look. I didn't even look up what the diagnosis was. I didn't look. I was like, just prayed about it. Said, I'm giving this to God. And normally, I go look everything up, and I'm going to see, well, what does this doctor say about it? What does that doctor say about it? No, I just said, God, I think you put me in the right hands with the right doctor. I'm going to do what he tells me to do. I'm not going to try to second guess anything. I'm just going to go and do. And I did. And,
there you go.
Right now I'm cancer free. I mean, there's a couple of things we're watching, but the doctor, my oncologist, says he doesn't believe that it's anything to worry about. So, I'm not going to.
So to go off the spectrum here, so let's go from one side to the next. Donald Trump spoke this week, not a State of the Union, but a speech.
Kind of hard to give a State of the Union, 4 weeks in or whatever.
However,
right?
There's a lot that's been happening, but what are your thoughts on Al Green's disruption and the handling of
I felt like
civility?
It was very much just a put on a fake.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it.
From Al Green or from the House? House?
From Al
Speaker.
Green.
Okay.
Well, Al Green, he stood out there. It kind of reminded me of the story when I saw him with that cane. It kind of reminded me of the story where what was it, Calhoun or whatever, back in the 1860s, or when he beat that one senator or something. There's a story out there where I think his name was Calhoun. Took his cane. He was from South Carolina. I think he was from South Carolina, and he beat his opponent. They were talking about slavery and things like that, and he beat the man and put him in the hospital. And he took him years to recover. And this was on the House floor, right, or on the Senate floor, one of the two. And so those type of things you're thinking like, wow. When I saw him out there with that cane, it reminded me of that story. And it's a true story. I mean, you think that they get hostile now? Imagine that.
So, in transitioning from that, obviously order and decorum was met by removing him. Now, on these college campuses where they receive federal funding, and you have these protesters that think that they can just jump up and create hostilities on campus for other students and violating their civil rights. What do you think about them losing their visas and their citizen rights and being sent back over to their home countries versus going to school?
I mean, there's certainly, you need to be, when you're coming here, you're not. It's not like when you're a citizen. When you come here, and you're here on a visa or what have you. You need to be on probably a little bit better behavior than even a regular citizen, because a regular citizen, they're going to put them in jail for disruption or what have you. But you're here when you're here on a visa and you do something disruptive like that, well, the government has every right to pull that visa and send you home.
Say bye-bye.
Yeah.
And we'll keep your money. Thank you very much.
And I don't necessarily, I hope it doesn't come to that so really quickly, but at the same time,
I hope it shuts it down. So this is what I don't understand.
But you need to affect behavior. You definitely need to affect that behavior.
Okay, so I don't understand why the president of the school doesn't do that. Any president of any school owns the security of the school and the safety for every one of its students. I'm sorry, but if you're here like a redheaded stepchild trying to come into this school and you're a U.S. citizen or you're a foreign national, I'm keeping your money and I'm kicking you off the campus. You are creating an unsafe environment for our students, and where is the patriotism of the schools and their responsibilities to the nation in regards to?
Well, I mean, it's the priorities that's mixed up. I'd say they have it in their mind that they have to protect the least, and at the sake of the most. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's not really how this is supposed to work. That's actually not a democratic ideal.
No, that's not. That's a patriotic.
It's
privilege.
It's a privileged ideal, and it's like, when you have when the majority.
And in that sense, the privilege, I don't think you should get any federal funding if you're going to continue to condone those types of acts in our higher educated individuals.
I agree. They should cut off the funding to those schools and those, whatever it may be. I mean, what did you think?
So you're a Kentucky fan, so a UK fan. So if that happened on UK, would you feel the same?
Yeah. I mean, I would be ashamed if they let that go on the UK campus.
Well, nobody's saying that they have. I'm just saying for perspective. I honestly think the leadership on UK would do a good job. I just think it's these
for the most part.
Colleges that
you want to allow free speech,
sure,
right, in the right form, but not hate and not trying to shut down. You can't shut down schools. You can't shut down classes, but you should have
streets or highways.
But they should have a vigorous debate in the common space about it. Talk.
But you're not going to make a change.
But they don't want to talk about it. They want to hold hostage, and that's that's what the Democratic Party has shown at the Democrats in the Congress showed on Tuesday. They wanted to try to hold up and disrupt and because they don't agree with the election, and so and I don't understand if a democratic society elected a man for president,
right?
How is it protecting democracy by trying to force him not to be able to run the government, not to be part of the government. They're confusing what they mean when they mean that they're protecting democracy. They're meaning they're protecting the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
They're not talking about democracy as a government. They're talking about democracy as the Democratic as the Democratic Party,
Right.
and their principles and what they want to stand up for. And the people of the United States have said, "Hey, we don't stand up for all of these things. We prefer this other party at this moment."
Yeah.
Now you can't go around and just say, "Oh, the people are stupid," because that's what they've been saying for the last 108
Right.
days or 110 days or something like that since the election. That's what they've been saying. People were just stupid. They didn't know. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We decide who we want to do these things, so we all go and vote. Yes, some of us are more partisan than others. The people who are saying this stuff are more partisan than the other people in the Democratic Party. So not every Democrat believes in this stuff, but the people that they've chosen to be their leadership has shown that that's what they believe in. So that's what is representing the party. It wasn't always that way. It used to be a real choice,
Right.
between Democrat Party and Republican Party.
Yeah.
And it's not, to me, it's no choice anymore. It's like, you see how many people are moving over to the Republican Party these days. It's just.
Well, I think a lot of that too has to deal with your Christian values.
Yeah.
I think which party is most aligned with your Christian values, and that's kind of how you align. I just can't. It's not the same time or era
Yeah.
as it was for my grandfather and some other stuff. So it makes it difficult. I'm sure it
does.
at the family
yeah.
table, though. But we've got to learn how to have a conversation with one another
Yes.
and not be so laser focused on the head down approach with your phone in front of you, and willing to look up and make eye contact and have a conversation.
Exactly. I think that the fact that what we're seeing right now in government and with Doge and things like that are forcing conversations again.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have conversations because you know what? Look, you saw President Trump come out the other day and say, "Listen, hey, we want to use a scalpel, not a hatchet, to go down these layoffs." He's got his cabinet in place, his secretaries are in place, and now he's putting it on them to go and carve out what's necessary and what's not necessary.
Right. Well, that concludes this week's episode of Kentucky Talks. This is our third episode,
That's
Volume 1. Volume 1. Get out
Episode
and
3.
get your local messenger. You can get it at themessengerky.com, or you can get it at the newsstand.
I take it.
Yeah, get it.
I
That's
love
good.
it. I read it
Got
every
a
week.
great issue that's a really captivating cover this week. You need to check it out and see what's changed. There's a secret in there. You want to uncover it this week, so don't miss your...
It's a little bit of a Back to the Future.
It is a Back to the Future.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, sign us
Steve?
off.
Well, Steve, thanks for putting this on again. Guys, thank you all for listening to us and talking to us. One thing I would like to talk to you guys about in the future, and I implore you guys to let us know. I'd like us to look at some of the things that people just like. Some little maybe there's a gadget you like that you've seen, and let's introduce to it. I would like us to start maybe having a segment where we can just do some things like that, where we can just say, this little guy right here is such a cool little thing, a little toy or a little thing. And I've got a little spring-fed bread tie at the house that I love. I think it's one of the greatest things in the world. And I'm gonna bring that on. We're gonna talk about that one day. But if you have anything like that, guys, let us know.
See you soon.
See you guys.